All right, I believe everyone's here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and hear us out today. We're here to talk today about two separate sets of bills, one in the House and one in the Senate. I have to tell you that in beginning this, the House Bills 2495 and Senate Bill 1942, which creates the Reproductive Health Act. With that name, I feel a little bit like I've fallen through the rabbit hole. Everything is upside down, backwards, and inside out in just using the name, because these two bills have absolutely nothing to do with reproductive health. The legislation, if enacted, eliminates restrictions on post-viability abortions, allowing abortions at any stage of the pregnancy. So what does post-viability mean? It means that if the baby would live, if cared for, the baby would live. The baby has a heartbeat. In fact, there are even points of the pregnancy where an abortion would be allowed, where a doctor, when they're doing operations in utero, actually anesthetize a baby. So we're talking about the ability to be able to abort a baby that already feels pain and has a heartbeat. It provides that every individual who becomes pregnant has a fundamental right to an abortion, but under this proposal, an infant would not have a legal right to stay alive. If enacted, the Reproductive Health Care Act, a fertilized egg, embryo, or fetus, all of which is better known as an unborn baby, will not have an independent right under the laws of the state of Illinois. We support protecting the life of the mother, but we also support protecting the life of an unborn baby. And as a newborn. It's wrong to think that our laws should not protect the life of an unborn child. In essence, these bills would allow abortion anytime, for any reason, with or without a physician in or out of a healthcare facility, and paid for with taxpayer dollars. And that's partly why it takes us back to the hypocrisy of the name of this bill. The second set of bills that we're going to talk about are notification of parental notification on abortions. They're House Bill 2467 and Senate Bill 1594. The Parental Notification Act of 1995 was enforced until 2013. The act was challenged in court, and in 2013, the Illinois Supreme Court ruled that the Parental Notice of Abortion Act did not violate the Constitution. This is still the current law. Illinois law mandates the notification of a parent, grandparent, or legal guardian when a minor seeks an abortion. Current law also provides a process for a minor to go to court and get a waiver of notice from the court. If enacted, this legislation would remove the parental notification requirement for a girl 17 years of age or younger, so her parent or legal guardian would not be notified when she is seeking an abortion. Parental permission is required for a tattoo or piercing, but it would not be required for a medical procedure that could create hemorrhage, infection, sterilization, and a parent would not even know why this had happened. So take us back to the first statement again, which is these bills create an environment of feeling like you've fallen through the rabbit hole. They're upside down, backwards, and inside out. A parent in the future, or a grandparent, as a parent or and a grandparent right now in the future, I want to be sure that parents and grandparents are notified when a medical procedure is performed, especially one that is as invasive as an abortion is. And I'm just kind of giving you the round idea of what we're talking about today, and then I'm going to pass it over to Representative Avery Bourne. At this point, she's going to get a little bit more in depth.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Avery Bourne, State Representative for the 95th District. This package of bills that we're talking about today is extreme, and it would make Illinois an outlier. It deregulates the abortion industry and also expands abortions. And it's out of step with the majority of Illinoisans. We're not just talking about traditional pro-life and pro-choice lines. When we look at what people believe about limitations and regulations on access to abortion as this bill creates, it's much more expansive than even most pro-choice Illinoisans agree with. Already, many of the broad concerns have been touched on by my colleague, but for many of the changes in this bill, you've got to dig into the weeds. This is more than late-term abortions. This is more than parental notification. When you dig into the pieces of regulation that are repealed in this, it becomes a giveaway to the abortion industry and is actually very dangerous and goes against many of our broad bipartisan policy goals that we have. I think all of us here can agree, and I think most people in the General Assembly can agree in some of these broad policy goals that I mentioned, to support the health and safety of mothers and babies, to support prenatal health. We saw bills yesterday in the House and yesterday in committee talking about the importance of protecting mothers who are carrying unborn babies. This bill undermines many of those goals, and a goal to reduce unplanned pregnancies that can lead to abortion. The first policy goal, to support the health and safety of the mother and the baby, Representative Bryant touched on it. This takes abortions out of medical facilities. They do not have to be done by doctors. They do not have to be in medical facilities. If we are talking about health care, which is what they claim to be talking about in this bill, it makes no sense that they would take those out of health care facilities. When we talk about the safety of babies, because, as Representative Bryant mentions, this takes away the rights of unborn babies, it actually could prohibit legal actions against mothers of unborn children who use drugs during pregnancy or in other ways harm their unborn child. This is absolutely out of alignment with a lot of our laws that we currently have. And then when we talk about prenatal health, I mentioned we had bills on the floor yesterday. We had bills in committee yesterday talking about the importance of creating an environment that is safe and healthy for expectant mothers and their unborn babies. This expressly strips out any of those rights for unborn babies, and it could undermine the legal justification for the crime or murder of an unborn child and its mother. To talk about supporting prenatal health and yet taking away the rights of that baby in the womb is wrong and goes against many of the policy goals that we have. And to talk about, I think a policy goal that we all have is to reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies that can result in abortions. And one tool that we have now to know if we are making progress on that policy goal is we get reports of how many abortions are performed in the state of Illinois. This bill repeals that. There is no reporting requirement, so we will have no idea of how this law impacts the number of abortions in Illinois. This is concerning to me on a number of levels. If we want information, which I think most people in the General Assembly understand the importance of tracking how our policy decisions impact everyday Illinoisans, what are they trying to hide? If their goal is really to care for the mothers and their babies, they should be willing to tell us this information. If their goal is to expand abortions in all instances for all age of women, then of course they would try to hide this information. And let me remind you, we have taxpayer dollars that are now paying for abortions. For us to not know how many abortions are being paid for with our taxpayer dollars is unconscionable. Many of these changes, I think, have been not the focus because some of the policies in this bill are so offensive, but a couple others bring to light some of the recent public discussions we've seen nationwide on abortion. This bill, beyond the third trimester abortions and the parental notification, would also require that abortions be provided for free with no copay by all private health insurance plans with no exception for churches or religious nonprofits or for pro-life small businesses. We have seen this play out on the national level, and it goes against what I believe a majority of Americans think is right and what the Supreme Court has said is right. And then to another recent debate that arose when we learned of places around the nation who are selling tissues of aborted babies. This bill would remove the ban of experimentation on a fetus and the requirement to obtain consent from the pregnant mother before experimenting on the organs and tissues of her aborted baby. When you dig into the weeds of this bill, it is absolutely an extreme overreach. It is out of step with what a majority of Illinoisans believe is appropriate. It goes against many of our public policy goals, and it really is something to give away money and really business to the abortion industry. This is not about the mothers. This is not about the babies. This is about the abortion industry being deregulated and having more power in the state of Illinois. And I think for many of us here and in the General Assembly, we need to bring these details to light.
Thank you. And we're going to hear now from Representative Darren Bailey.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Darren Bailey from the 109th District. I am excited today because from the 109th, the 110th, and the 107th, we've got over 5 busloads of friends here, well over almost 300 people here to express their beliefs in this day of action for life here in Springfield. So Representative Bryant shared some facts with you. Representative Bourne took you into the weeds. I want to take you down to the roots just a little bit. Friends, we got a moral problem here. This is wrong. Illinois should be the greatest state in the nation, and now we find ourselves in the pit. We're at the bottom of the barrel, and there's a reason for that, and we're told why that is. And Proverbs 28:2 tells us that when there is moral rot in a nation, its government topples easily. It says wise and knowledgeable leaders bring stability. So I want you to consider that. I want you to think about this tree standing out in the middle of the field, and I want to, why does a tree fall usually? Because it has weak roots. It's got bad roots. So I want to take you down to those roots, and I want you to consider that and think about that. And I want to encourage everyone to do some research on these bills. And if you understand it, if you don't understand it, let us know, and we'd like to share some facts with you. If you do understand it, please look these bills up, call the sponsors, and tell them in a kind, polite way why you disagree with this, why this is bad for Illinois, and why we need to get our state back on a moral high ground. And we need to restore ourselves back to the greatest state of the nation. Those days are coming, so thank you very much.
So just to recap before we take questions, both of these bills are bills that will allow for abortion to be conducted for any reason, at any stage of the pregnancy, taxpayer funded, and no parental notification at all. So what is a medical procedure that could cause some serious medical repercussions later. A parent may not even know why that happens. So at this point, we'll open up to some questions if you have any questions.
With the governor, when he first got into office, I think one of the statements was he wants Illinois to be the most progressive state for reproductive health decisions.
I think he said he wanted to be the most progressive state just in general. Maybe he identified it in that also.
Well, he was with Planned Parenthood when
Sure.
he talked about
So,
with that,
Mm-hmm.
with that, and with the Democratic supermajorities in both chambers, what are you guys going to be able to do? Can you add to the conversation instead of just opposing and maybe looking at some of these provisions you're really worried about?
well, obviously, what the bill of goods that we were sold was that this was to fix some constitutional questions. And I think that everyone who is standing here understands that the courts have ruled against some of the laws that we have in place. So possibly, even though we might have thrown up a little bit of a stink, we would have understood that if there were constitutional questions, maybe we could answer those with legislation. This goes so far beyond that that it's out of even the realm of reality. To the question of being the most progressive state in the United States, let's remember that even though the governor won by a lot of votes, he still only won, I think, 5 counties. That is not a mandate in this state that that you can go and run an agenda that is progressively against most of the folks who live in this state. Not everyone votes, but I promise you on this issue, you'll find that if you look at the witness slips in opposition of these bills, both in the House and the Senate, we're talking about tens of thousands of people who have put witness slips in opposition. So I think regardless of who the elected officials are and how many of us there are in opposition, this is a bill that we're going to hear from the people of Illinois on loud and strong.
Representative Bryant, what
Yes.
are your constituents in Southern Illinois specifically telling you?
They are very supportive always of parental notification. They want to know what's going on with their children as a general rule. That's the first thing. they would like the government to totally stay out of their business. In this case, they're getting into the very heart of who you are as a family. In addition to that, you are again talking about medical procedures that could conceivably now not be done in a medical setting and not by a physician. So if the whole goal of all of this is to make it safer for women, and we want to keep people out of back alley abortions, then why would we go to bills that could create an environment where you're forcing people back into a non-medical situation?
A judge at the Senate Public Health Committee yesterday, she was one of, I think she said the first two judges in Cook County to hear judicial bypass cases. She testified that she thinks the parental notification law should be repealed because she thinks that it's intrusive and it doesn't really work very well. Given that, I mean, she hears these cases, she just retired in January, but she heard these cases for years and she doesn't think it's useful, or at least that aspect of it. Do you think maybe revisiting the judicial bypass section of it should be revisited, or?
That's not a part of this, though. So if
it's part of the parental
well,
notification.
it is, but again, if a judge thinks that, then a judge should run for office so that they can make the laws to do that with. But, again, we don't want judges that are legislating from the bench. So if that's her belief, then of course she could get with the legislator and run a piece of legislation to fix that aspect of it. But I understand what you're saying, but I don't believe that this bill actually addresses obviously only that issue. So do you want to comment on that?
The parental notification bill was passed in 1995 and wasn't fully implemented until a court said that it was appropriate to do so. And so I think it's very common to have courts that disagree with each other. That's why we make policies. But I think that in this instance, it is very clear to all of us that parental notification is an important tool for, as Terri mentioned, not only your family life, but we also know that it has reduced the number of abortions in teens by half. And so if our policy goal is to allow for more education, allow for these conversations to take place, I think we see value in having parental notification be a part of it. If they wanted to come and negotiate this bill with us, they could have. But I don't think that they're willing to do that.
Senator Sims would argue that you've seen that number decrease among adults also because of increased access to contraception. So it's not just that law.
That's absolutely correct, and that's why I think it's so important that we make sure that we know, which this bill will not provide, how many abortions are taking place in Illinois. We want to know, are our policy goals of reducing the number of unplanned pregnancies working? And we also want to know, are people coming in from states around us to receive an abortion because this will make us an outlier in the most progressive state?
I want to just check on that really quickly. I may not be looking at this correctly, but I'm looking at the Reproductive Health Act right now, and I don't see anything about repealing the reporting requirement. The section I'm looking at is 1-25. Let's see, a report of each abortion performed by a healthcare professional shall be made to the department, but that any patient identifying information will be left confidential, not applicable to FOIA. Am I not looking at that correctly? I don't see where the repeal of that.
Through our reading, we believe that it will repeal that, but I'd be happy to follow up with a conversation.
How much of this do you think is a placeholder for the 2020 election, being that, the president's out there wanting to take money away from Planned Parenthood, for instance, or, pointing to New York's policies and saying it's late-term abortion. The supporters of reproductive rights have said that that's just inflammatory rhetoric just to get people upset. How much of this is just politics?
Well, I would hope that people are not playing politics with the lives of the unborn. And if that's the case, then that would be the ultimate shame on whoever is doing this. So it certainly is not my intention here to be political about this. It's about making sure that our unborn babies are protected and the lives of the mothers that are involved. So we make sure that truly their reproductive health is guarded. So if it's political, shame on whoever's doing it.
More question?
When it comes to the idea of late-term abortions, you hear that these are extreme circumstances for that to happen. How do you counter that for some of those extreme types of circumstances that there may be? having these laws in place to protect those women.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we already have provisions for life and health of the mother. This goes beyond that. So we're not talking about the extreme circumstances. We are talking about could be a healthy mom, healthy baby, and they make that decision up into the 40th week of pregnancy. So this is not talking about specifically unique instances when the life or health of the mother or the baby is not viable. That's not the conversation here.
And not to get too personal with you, but
Yeah.
how many weeks are you now?
Yeah, I get very emotional talking about this topic. So I get daily, really miraculous updates at what's happening in my womb right now with our son. He's 24 weeks, which is viability. So this is a policy issue for me, but it's very personal. I mean, I have a healthy baby, I'm healthy, and the people who are pushing this would say that it could be my decision to end his life when he has a 62% chance of living if he were born today. So it's personal and it's bad policy.
Can I ask you one more question? It seems like
Yeah.
the only bill that's really moving is the Senate version of the parental notification. The Senate version of the Reproductive Health Act is still an executive, and the two House versions are stuck in informed consent. It seems like the opposition is sort of working, maybe. Are you guys relieved at all? I mean, things can change, obviously, session is still early, but.
We are going to continue to fight this for every minute that there's a possibility that it might move. So, thank you. Thank you all for being here today.